All right, welcome back to the channel. So it seems like Errol Spence Jr. will be fighting Yordenis Ugas in the July time frame, going to win his third belt in that division, and without a doubt, setting up the Terence Crawford fight if Terence Crawford is actually going to take it. Let's talk about Errol Spence Jr., Yordenis Ugas, and what that means for the welterweight division. Let's do that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So it looks like we're starting to get some clarity in what's going to be taking place in the second half of the year. People that are familiar with boxing know that typically speaking, the beginning half of the year is a little bit slow. And that is, at least for me, because many of my favorite fighters are with the PBC. I'm a big fan of American boxing fans. Oh, excuse me, had to sneeze. I'm a big fan of American fighters, right? So I really look forward to the second half of the year where the PBC really kicks off most of their major fights. And one of the big fights that I believed was going to take place this year is Errol Spence Jr. versus Yordenis Ugas. I was going through my Twitter and I saw a post by Steve Kim. Don't say a lot of nice things about Steve Kim, but I definitely shout out to him for providing this information that according to him and his sources that Yordenis Ugas and Errol Spence Jr. are going to be fighting in the July timeframe. Now, this is something that I thought was going to happen, and this is one of the cases where it's like, okay, the boxing gods got it right. Okay, Yordenis Ugas was the WBA regular champion, and Manny Pacquiao was the WBA super champion. So up until recently, maybe I think this might have happened in the last month and a half, Errol Spence Jr. was really pushing to get a Manny Pacquiao fight so that he could get the third belt. You'll get his third belt at the welterweight division. Right now, he has the IBF and the WBC. Manny Pacquiao had the WBA, so both Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. were very focused on fighting Manny Pacquiao. But with Manny Pacquiao being removed from that championship and Yordenis Ugas being elevated to the WBA super champion, and I do believe that Jamal James was elevated, another PBC fighter was elevated to the WBC regular title. Well, now that means in order for Errol Spence Jr.'s strap season to continue, he's got two fights that he can have. One is with Yordenis Ugas, the other one is with Terence Crawford. Seeing as Errol Spence Jr. said at least 2 years ago that what his plan was to clean up his side of the street. And after he cleaned up his side of the street, his job was that he was going to then go to the other side of the street and get the WBO belt. That looks like exactly what is happening. So to examine the fight between Errol Spence and Yordenis Ugas, to start with it, I think that Errol Spence Jr. should be heavily, heavily favored in this fight. I think I could be wrong, but I don't think that I am, that this may be one of his more dominant performances that he's had. Probably the most dominant performance he's had since maybe Lamont Peterson, because I think that Yordenis Ugas is pretty much tailor-made for him. He's a stalker. So I want to say he's just strictly a come-forward fighter. He's a very, very highly skilled fighter. He's somebody that does everything well, from what I can see, does everything well. He stays in great shape, but he doesn't do any particular thing great. And as far as it relates to Errol Spence Jr., I just think that Yordenis Ugas is not terribly difficult to hit. One of the fights that reminds me a bit of the style of fight that I think that this will be is the Yordenis Ugas fight with Omar Figueroa. Now, if you recall that fight, Omar Figueroa definitely got beat up in that fight. But if you watch how Omar Figueroa was fighting Yordenis Ugas basically fight him in at mid-range and fight him up close, like the Figueroas do. Love Omar Figueroa's style, love Brandon Figueroa's style. They come to get in your chest and they come to let their hands go and throw a lot of punches. And the problem with that particular fight with Omar Figueroa is just Omar Figueroa does not have all of the weapons, nor does he have the size and the strength of Errol Spence Jr. And I think that if you see that same type of that same type of exchange, even though, in a more skilled fashion or a cleaner fashion, that I think that, that Yordenis Ugas's tendency to be there is going to cause him a lot of problems against Errol Spence Jr. because Errol Spence Jr., I do believe, has more power. I do believe that he has the faster hands, and I also think that he has the tighter technique, much more like straight down the pike, or straight down the pipe at you. So, just the style matchup between the two, I think that, it's going to be a fight where Errol Spence Jr. should be heavily, considered the favorite, a heavy favorite in that fight. Now, obviously, there is a certain aspect about Yordenis Ugas that I think, that can offset some of the advantages that Errol Spence Jr. has, specifically the advantages that Errol Spence Jr. has fighting out of the southpaw stance. Yordenis Ugas is, and now this is something where I'm saying this basically off of, stereotypes and generalizing the training and the fighting that goes on in Cuba. If you're familiar with Cuban amateur fighters, or if you pay attention to the trends with Cuban fighters in the pros, many of them tend to be southpaw, right? Converted orthodox into southpaw for the purpose of having your lead hand, your strong hand in front of you. So you can see that with guys like, I think Guillermo Rigondeaux might be a natural southpaw, but you see that with, I do believe Landy Lara fights in the southpaw stance. What's my man's name? I always forget. Luis Ortiz fights in the southpaw stance. It's just something that they do on a regular basis in the Cuban amateurs, is have people fight in the southpaw stance. But so Yordenis Ugas, who is an orthodox fighter, is used to and was trained fighting a lot of southpaws in Cuba. Very slick southpaws, very, very highly skilled southpaws. So the one advantage that I would say that could be neutralized by Yordenis Ugas, or something that he would have a lot of experience is in fighting an aggressive guy from the southpaw stance. But that said, I really believe that the pressure of Errol Spence Jr., the level of opposition that he's faced. Also, Yordenis Ugas has been knocked out at a lower weight class in the past at 140 pounds. He is somebody that, that had a hard time catching up with Sean Porter on the back foot. And I think if he fights that same style that he fought with Sean Porter, following Sean Porter around, following Errol Spence around. See, Errol can fight on the back foot and he can fight coming forward as well. So it's just that versatility that I see in Errol that I think is going to be a big problem. Now, if and when Errol Spence Jr. wins this fight, though, that is when everything is complete, and the conversation about Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. fighting really should kick into overdrive. And I will say this because I've been really trying to be diplomatic when it comes to Terence Crawford, just because I know that there's so much pressure on the dude. It's like, come on, man. The guy can't be wrong about everything, As far as what he said about Canelo Alvarez, the dude was just spot on about that, man. People can, but you know how it is. The people that, it's like Terence Crawford doesn't really have a fan base, right? His fan base, the people that defend him oftentimes are just people that have issues with other fighters, like they don't like Errol Spence, right? But when it's time, when he says something that they don't like, then they attack him full speed, like what happened with the Canelo Alvarez thing. But at the end of it, though, Terence Crawford needs to take this. If Errol Spence Jr. is willing to go through all these other people to get that third belt, it would be ridiculous if Terence Crawford were to play coy and talk like he don't want that fight. He would lose all respect that he has in the sport of boxing. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think. And with that, I'm out. Peace.